I mean, that's a big part of leadership, and you have to be able to understand who you're working with and how they communicate, how they, what their strengths are, and you know, work on those.
Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hey, our sponsor for the show today is Pine Financial Group, the leader in hard money lending in Colorado and Minnesota, and they were recently approved to offer their investment publicly. This investment offer is only for investors in Colorado and Minnesota and is only made through their investment prospectus. Get your copy today. Simply visit www.pineinvestments.com and click to get started. Look, there's a reason why some of the wealthiest people in history invest in loans backed by real estate. Learn more about the risks and returns at www.pineinvestments.com. Hello and welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer, with another Hump Day Hustle. And today I've got John Stiles on. John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great today, Todd. It's a good day to be alive.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for coming back. We're going to be doing a book review on a book that we both recently went through. And, Happy New Year to you. This is going to be released on New Year's. Obviously, it's not New Year's Day right now. We're not recording on New Year's, but Happy New Year's to you. It's going to be an awesome 2020. I'm really looking forward to it.
For sure. Yeah, 2020 is going to be a game changer. It's a new decade, so definitely.
It is a new decade. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Time to step it up a notch, right?
There you go. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, and here's the thing. I've never been a big year-end type of person because I believe that you should be busting your butt every day. Doesn't matter when it is. Like everybody always plans their goals. A lot of people plan them months in advance for the next year. I'm not a big believer in that. I plan my 2020 goals maybe a week or so before. And so that's kind of what I'm going through or what I've been going through and really just kind of finished off as my goal planning for 2020 and beyond and kind of reflecting. But, it depends on, it works for people different ways. So if it works for you to kind of reset as the year ends and comes in, that works. If that works for you, great, do it. I'm a big proponent of let's make sure we make every year, every day, every minute a good minute,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the downfall of only setting goals at the new year is that, well, you wait till December 25th to try to meet the goals, and then by then it's too late. So
yeah.
But at the same time,
that's important too, John. What you just said there is you got to be always looking and reflecting on your goals. Like you should be pulling those goals up, if not daily, you should be pulling them up weekly and going, okay, how am I coming on these? Am I accomplishing them? Okay, what are the 5 steps that I need to take this week to make sure I'm working towards those goals? Okay, I did get distracted, but what do I need to do to refocus?
Yep, for sure.
Cool. Well, let's dive in. We're going to talk about the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babins, I think.
Yep.
Is that
Babin.
what it is?
Yep.
What'd you think of the book?
I liked it. I liked it a lot.
It's definitely intense, right? Those guys are very intense.
For sure, yeah.
Ex-Navy SEAL guys, I guess you would only expect them to be intense. I read or listened to David Goggins' book. I can't recall the name, but I'll look it up and think about it. He's a Navy SEAL too, and same thing, very intense. So that's what you expect from a Navy SEAL.
Yeah. Some great stories throughout the book. Almost makes you want to go and watch a good war movie after the fact.
Yeah, Can't Hurt Me is the David Goggins book, and I thought that was excellent as well. But a lot of just stories, but very intense. And these guys, Jocko and Leif are very intense as well. So yeah, a lot of good stories, war stories. I did feel at times I got a little disconnected from the book, listening to the war stories, and like being like into the war stories, but yet not really relating to them to the topic they were talking about at times. But it was still entertaining.
Yeah. Well, and I really appreciate when authors can use stories to make a point, because I felt they did bring it back. Maybe you
Pretty
didn't
well for the
understand it
most
at
part.
first,
Yeah.
um, but they did bring it back. They did apply it. They did bring out principles from their experiences, and so that was really important.
Yeah. Yeah. The overall, just so people know, the overall kind of topic of the book is extreme ownership, and it's about owning your mistakes. It's about owning the responsibilities. And look, if you are the leader, if you're a true leader, is nobody else's fault but your own. You have to take responsibility. And I had to look at it recently. I had to let go of property management company, and I had to really reflect and go, okay, I can sit here and blame the property management company and sit here and say that it was their fault. They did things wrong, and that's why the property. But ultimately, it's my fault. It falls on my shoulders. I am the leader. I'm the asset manager. I am, the main owner. Sorry, I shouldn't say main owner, but the general partner of this property, and it falls on me. So, what were the decisions I made that led to the failure of the property management company? And when I look back at it, I had to really realize that I probably didn't set them up for as much success as what I could have from the very start. And when you don't start out right, you typically don't. It's hard to trend in the right direction. So I didn't have a lot of the checks and balances in place. I don't think I portrayed my vision to them as well as I needed. I don't think it really pressed upon them of the importance of getting some of these renovations done early and often. I would rather have them sit vacant than not be ready when people do want to rent. We ran into that, and that was a big part of some of these problems and the hiring. And so there's just a lot of different problems that came about with this management company that ultimately I said I had to move on with them. But when I look at it, that was my fault from the beginning of not setting them up for the success that I wanted and envisioned. So yeah, I think that was the overarching kind of you know theme of the book is, look, you have to take ownership, uh, and you're going to have, not only is that going to help your success, but it's going to help your entire team's success as well.
Yep. And I think it just really goes against what our natural inclination is. Our natural tendency is to blame everyone and everything around us. And what was really kind of eye-opening for me in this book is that it's not just people who are maybe underneath you that you're in charge of, but it's also people to the side of you. It's also people above you. And whatever the situation is, you need to make sure that your colleagues understand the situation, the way best to work together. Your boss, if you're self-employed, maybe you don't have a boss, but there's for me, for example, I'm a real estate agent, but I'm part of a brokerage. So there might be some things that I might not like about the broker, what he's doing, but I can't just sit here and think, well, if they would only do things differently, then I would be successful. Well, maybe I need to communicate this stuff with the broker, and you have to give feedback up and down the chain of command. So
Yeah. Yeah. And ultimately, if you're a business owner, you do have a boss. It's called your clients, right?
sure. Yep.
And if you're not making money, well, then you got to decide what you got to take ownership. You got to decide what you're doing wrong. Is it your marketing, or maybe it's how you're reacting and acting with your clients? I mean, somehow it's because your boss is not, either doesn't know who you are, or doesn't like who you are, or doesn't hear from you enough, or whatever it is. But ultimately, it's your own responsibility to figure that out, whether you're working for a company or whether you are the head of the company.
Yep, for sure.
Hey, let's take a minute to thank our sponsor, Pine Financial Group. Look, you work hard for your money. Is your money working hard for you? Because of inflation, money sitting idle erodes your wealth. Many investors understand that real estate is a great investment, but may not want the effort or the risk that comes with owning their own property. They want to sit back and have payments, hit their bank account each and every month. Stop eroding your wealth and start building it by asking your money to work for you. You should be earning profits while you sleep, an investment backed by real estate. Pine Financial Group, the leader in hard money lending in Colorado and Minnesota, was recently approved to offer their investment publicly. This investment offer is only for investors in Colorado and Minnesota and is only made through the investment prospectus. Get your copy today. Simply visit www.pineinvestments.com and click to get started. There's a reason why some of the wealthiest people in history invest in loans backed by real estate. Learn more about the risks and returns at www.pineinvestments.com. It's www.pineinvestments.com.
Yeah, one of the things they talked about was there's no bad teams, there's only bad leaders. So a lot of times you might blame the team. They gave the example of, SEALs going through their, I forget the exact name, but their SEAL training, and they had these different teams in there, and they put a lot of pressure on whichever team is falling behind, whichever team is last. You do not want to be last in this training. And they ended up
during Hell Week, right? They call it Hell Week.
Right. So they ended up changing the leaders from the best team and the worst team. And it all came down to the leaders. The best team still did really great, even with the worst leader,
Yeah.
Because they were originally trained by a really great leader. And that worst team became really great because they were, had a new great leader. So it came down to the leadership there.
Yeah, I really like that example. What was it? Were they carrying boats or something and running?
Yep.
And
Yep.
the team that was always coming in last place and had this leader that was just badgering them and wasn't doing a good job leading. They were always coming in last, and then there's another team that was always coming in first and had had a strong leader, and they switched the leaders, and the team that was coming in last, they won that, right? Or maybe
they either came
whatever.
first or second. They were really.
It was just like, wow, that's pretty crazy to think. Like, that little bit of change sometimes can make a big difference, and it's all about that leadership. It's not like the people were somehow worse. It was that the leader wasn't doing what they needed to do. They just blamed everybody else.
Yep.
Yeah. What other takes did you have from the book? Anything else?
I think, like I mentioned, it's just it's. I think before I was thinking in terms of just leading down the chain of command, and whoever I'm maybe hiring, or whoever's in my team, I need to make sure they are doing what they should, and obviously that's a good part of it. But then looking outwards and upwards, I think that was a really big eye opener for me.
Explain what that means. Looking outwards and upwards.
Yeah. So the people who, so he gave the example of two different divisions of a company where they're basically separated, but they rely on each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of them, was dissatisfied with the service provided by the other. And so what do? They just complained, and they're like, oh, they're such a terrible company or division, and they're not doing what they should be doing. Well, when they went through this training that, the authors offer about extreme ownership, then they gain a new, perspective that even though it's a different division, pretty well separated, it is the same company with them. And so that means they have the same goals. They're all trying to, make money for the company and be successful. So instead of bickering and instead of blaming, they can, talk to each other, meet with each other, see what ways they can help each other out. And he also, going back to the military, and there's different branches in the military, obviously, and they have to work alongside each other. And there's times when, one branch or one person might want to tell the other what to do, but they can't. They're not in authority, but they can use influence, and they can build relationships, and they can have understanding, so that when it comes time where they really want to get their point across, um, they can, they can do that effectively.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that happens, in businesses a lot when you have mergers, or just a new acquisition of some sort. And, people have different expectations. The company was run a certain way, and now this new company takes over, new leadership, whatever, and we have some butting of heads. Um, what I thought was interesting. I can't remember the exact number. I think they said you can't effectively lead a large team. Um, and they said basically, you're only going to be effective at leading. I think it was like 5 to 10 people. It was a fairly small number, and beyond that, you need other people to lead. So you have to have tiers. You have to have steps. You can't just assume that you can lead a large team of 30, 40 people and be effective at it. So I thought that was really interesting. And I guess, when you look at companies, you look at pro sports teams. I mean, you have a head coach, right? And he leads everybody, but does he really lead everybody? Yeah, I mean, kind of, but you also have all these other coaches set up, right? You have all these assistant coaches and, different coaches for different positions, and any sports, it's very similar. So businesses, sports are all the same. The leaders are only leading a small group of people.
Yep, yep. So that's just kind of telling for our interpersonal relationships. I mean, that's a big part of leadership, and you have to be able to understand who you're working with and how they communicate, how they, what their strengths are, and you know, work on those.
What I don't think that means is that if you're, let's say you're building a company that's larger, like some of us are trying to do, it doesn't mean that you should be ignoring those who you're not leading. It doesn't mean that just because you're maybe the CEO and you've got 5 or 6 managers directly underneath you that you talk to on more of a daily basis, doesn't mean you shouldn't communicate with maybe some of the lower end employees that are on the floor or whatever in the trenches. That doesn't necessarily mean that. It just means that you're you're really only leading those managers. You still should communicate. You still should be open with the rest of the company. But I think that's an important distinction to make, that it doesn't mean that you should just ignore everybody else.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of value from understanding, the boots on the ground perspective,
Yeah.
um, and having that influence your decisions at the higher level of how you're
Perfect.
operating the company.
Awesome. John, anything else?
No, I mean, I guess I would just say this definitely stays on the list of books that I want to keep and revisit.
Yeah.
Um, Definitely, you can get something in from it each time you go through it, and then it's good to just be reminded and um, stay in tune with this idea.
Yeah. A lot of, fairly simple book as far as just like the overarching, taking extreme ownership in leadership, but a lot of good, valuable points along the way, and a lot of good stories that kind of lead you into understanding what they're talking about. Plus, exciting stories if you do like that kind of war type stories. They talk a lot about their time over in overseas, in the Middle East. So a lot of exciting stories there, and holy cow, man, it is just crazy to hear some of that stuff that happened, and just hard to believe. Obviously, you kind of know it, you kind of hear it, but we're so insulated here, especially us in like Minnesota, where we're nowhere near any any real threats. You're just kind of insulated. So
Yep, for sure.
Cool. Well, John, appreciate it. You have a fantastic rest of the day. Happy New Year's to you. Best of luck in 2020. We'll be catching up. Talk to you soon.
All right. You too.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Couple things before we go. Again, go on to our Facebook page, Pillars of Wealth. We'd love to have you on there. Go on to iTunes, give us a rating and review, and subscribe to the show. Also, don't forget, reach out to me if you want any help with potentially growing your business, and reach out to John Stiles to help you buy or sell real estate. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it. Have a fantastic the rest of the day. And as I say, make every day a Saturday.